Hello and welcome to World News on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is confident Europe will be stronger than Russia by 2030. The comments came early in the Belgian capital on Friday morning, following high-level talks the day before, where European leaders discussed defense, Ukrainian support and competitiveness at a European Council well into the night. We are joined by our EU correspondent, Angela Skudjins. Hello, Angela. What else can you say about how the Polish Prime Minister perceived yesterday's summit?
Yes, so Donald Tusk addressed reporters on Friday morning. This was because we didn't get a chance to get his thoughts yesterday. He was whisked away to those meetings here where I'm reporting from at the European Council. So he addressed a gaggle of journos at the Polish permanent representation to the EU, which is just a stone's throw away. He said that important steps were taken in the interests of Warsaw last night, but it was a stacked agenda with those 27 European leaders discussing oceans as well as the conflict in the Middle East. But according to him, the most important topics that saw some progress include migration, deregulation and defence. Now, he was full of praise. He said those European leaders conceded that his ongoing work to fortify Poland's eastern border with Belarus and Russia was seen as a very important measure. Now, he allocated 2.5 billion euros to fortify that border with the aim of it being complete by 2028. He also said that the EU was finally recognising Poland's worries and concerns of Russian aggression. Let's take a listen to what he had to say regarding that.
To put it simply, by 2030 Europe must be, in terms of its army, armament and technology, clearly stronger than Russia, and it will be. If nothing changes, if we maintain this direction, Europe will be stronger in every aspect. I'm not including nuclear warheads, but you know, that's a different aspect. However, when it comes to conventional weapons, the army and the number of soldiers, we will simply be much stronger. No one will dare to raise a hand against Poland or Europe. And that's the goal that, in my opinion, everyone has already accepted, understood, and is moving to the same direction.
But what is interesting is that while there was some harmony on these very important issues, there seemed to be very much disunity. So the Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, for the second time in 2 weeks, used his veto power to raise any concrete measures for Ukraine to the ground. We also know that the EU High Representative, Kaja Kallas, her military initiative to support Ukraine was widely panned. What we heard from diplomats was that it was poorly constructed and even worse, poorly perceived. But the Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, said that the efforts to support Ukraine are not over yet. He told reporters that he was looking forward to those talks in France in the next 2 weeks. But as what we're hearing from a lot of the stakeholders here is that there seems to be a lot of meetings, not a lot of concrete outcomes. So wait and see whether those European leaders can put the pedal to the metal and get some of those outcomes for Ukraine. But that's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you to Warsaw.
Many thanks, Angela, our Brussels correspondent reporting live. European leaders have adopted a white paper on EU defence, which lays out the roadmap for EU rearmament. To discuss the details of the plan, we were joined by Professor Paweł Wojciechowski, Poland's former finance minister.
The industry would need to be coherent, has to be consolidated, has to think together, that we would use the money from those loans from the EU, but at the same time would benefit the whole European economy as well. Because if you would buy the arms only from the United States, the multiplier effects, because this is export to the United States and imports to the EU, would benefit the American economy, not the European economy.
The United Kingdom and France are the drivers behind the coalition of the willing, whose founding goal was to prepare a response ahead of a potential ceasefire in Ukraine. But could the ultimate outcome of this new initiative be more continuous and institutional cooperation? We were joined by Melanie Sully, director of the Institute for Governance, to explore this topic further.
I think the European Union is in a bit of a crisis. Like most of Europe is very nervous because they didn't really reckon with this scenario, although they should have. And so they're now going to the other extreme, I suppose, and going on an armaments and war economy footing, in effect, a transition to. But also, the European Union is within it very free trade, but outside protectionist. The United Kingdom is outside the European Union and has a whole lot to offer on defence and equipment. But the European Union is saying we're not buying from the UK. It's outside the European Union. We want French interests, or the French are saying we have our defence industry. And so long as that kind of mindset persists, then it will be very difficult to coordinate. And countries like Italy, are saying we don't see any need for the coalition of the willing. This could also be done by Article 5 and NATO. I think at the moment there is a phase in which European Union has to really calm down a bit, and Europe as a whole, to take stock of what really is possible in the future.
Russian bombs and drones fell on Ukraine overnight once again. Our correspondent in Kyiv, Oz Chatterjee, has this report.
While Moscow and Kyiv have agreed to a 30-day energy ceasefire proposal, the reality on the ground is something far from that, as Russia has continued to escalate its drone attacks across targets inside Ukraine. This morning, the Ukrainian Air Force reporting that Russia launched 214 attack drones against Ukrainian territory overnight. Now, Odessa was particularly hard hit, with 3 people being injured and power outages reported across the city as energy infrastructure was once again targeted by Russian drones. Now, Zaporizhia was also hit with 6 people being injured, and Dnipropetrovsk was also targeted with 4 people being wounded there. There are reports that 2 people have been killed in Russian attacks across Ukraine over the last 24 hours. Now, for their part, the Ukrainians have retaliated, striking again an oil depot in the Krasnodar region of Russia. However, the Ukrainians have denied reports that they targeted the gas metering station in Sudzha, the area of Kursk that the Ukrainians were pushed out of over the last 2 weeks. The Ukrainians have categorically denied bombing the Sudzha gas metering station, which was reported to have explosions overnight. Now, we also spoke to a Ukrainian former finance minister, Timothy Milivanov, the president of the Kyiv School of Economics, about how he thought the ceasefire proposals were going with the United States. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
My personal view on this is overall things are going better than I expected they could. And there is some convergence, even though there's nothing specific in the news, but there is some convergence to a reasonable ceasefire deal. And it probably will be something along the contact line, separation de facto, some agreement not to shoot at each other, with some, small minor violations, anyway. We have seen that in 2014, 2016. So something like that will happen. I think it has become very clear that the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia is in play, which for Ukraine, in my view, is very good news, because before that started, I thought, the nuclear power plant is basically gone. Russians will keep it. There are all these discussions about NATO, impossibility, neutrality, so that will have to be worked out further down the road.
So it is clear that there are still Ukrainians here who feel encouraged by the things coming out of Washington. However, the reality on the ground is Russia continues to strike energy targets inside Ukraine, and Ukraine continues to retaliate against oil depots inside Russia. It's Oz Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
The Security Service of Ukraine has revealed that Russian intelligence services have been attempting to recruit Ukrainian children for terrorist activities. 2 separate cases were reported in the Ternopil region of western Ukraine, where a 14-year-old girl was detained for attempting to plant an explosive device, and a 6th grader alerted the authorities after he was offered money to set fire to critical infrastructure. According to the SBU, the 14-year-old girl was coerced into cooperating with Russian operatives after they threatened to publish intimate photos stored on her phone. The girl was detained in Ternopil while attempting to plant an explosive device under a police car near the city's police station. In a separate incident, a 6th grade student in the Kremenets region reported receiving a message from an unknown Telegram account offering him money to set fire to critical infrastructure and law enforcement buildings. The boy, following prior security awareness training from both police and teachers, rejected the offer and promptly reported the incident to a police officer specializing in education security. Russia launched a mass drone strike on the Ukrainian city of Odessa as Czech President Petr Pavel was visiting the city. During Pavel's meeting with Ukrainian officials, including Deputy Prime Minister Oleksiy Kuleba, Russia fired 3 groups of Shahed-type drones at the city, injuring 3 people and sparking fires. The meeting between the officials focused on discussions surrounding maritime security, post-war reconstruction and community development. Kuleba emphasized the critical need for demining efforts, noting that since the summer of 2023, Russia has fired over 450 missiles targeting Ukraine's port infrastructure. Kuleba also invited President Pavel to attend the upcoming conference on the reconstruction of Ukraine in Rome this summer. The attack occurred just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a partial ceasefire agreement, pledging to halt strikes on Ukraine's civilian and energy infrastructure for 30 days. However, Odessa, a vital Black Sea port city, has remained a frequent target of Russian missile and drone attacks throughout the war. International air traffic has been severely disrupted after a power outage shut down London Heathrow Airport on Friday. Authorities say it was caused by a massive fire at a nearby electrical substation. Europe's busiest airport will remain closed at least until midnight, paralyzing European aviation.
An airport of this size being out of service for an extended period will be costly.
To have it out of action for 24 hours is a massive impact for aviation, massive impact for the UK economy.
Between the airport, the airlines, the electricity providers and insurance companies, it remains unclear who will pay the price.
Costs, again, are imprecise at the moment, but will certainly run into millions of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever currency you choose to pick.
Right now, it's the passengers suffering the most. With more than 1,000 flights diverted or cancelled, an estimated 200,000 passengers have been impacted. Many of them have been left stranded, and some with no way of reaching the airport at all.
The taxi driver and I, as we were on our approach to Terminal 4, he had commented that actually it was really dark, all of the street lights were off. And I said, oh, is that a normal thing? And he said, not really. He said he couldn't understand why. And then as we approached Terminal 4, there was a car parked in the approach road.
A police car, blocking off the access to the airport. But some experts aren't too worried about the affected passengers.
These people will find a way to get home. It's going to be tedious, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a bit like the Icelandic volcano that we had a few years ago. People are going to be stranded for a while, but they will get back.
Experts do agree that the fallout of this closure could run into next week. Due to required rest periods and other flight protocols, once a flight is disrupted, it can take a long time before it can get back on track.
If the airport opens, hopefully by the end of Friday, that there will be impact running on several days.
I think you're going to find it's going to run for at least the weekend and well into next week.
Although the fire may be contained, as confirmed by the London Fire Brigade, the fallout of this shutdown will be a challenge to manage.
Flights from Warsaw's Frederick Chopin Airport to London's Heathrow have been cancelled. On Friday, LOT Polish Airlines announced the suspension of some flights to the United Kingdom, all because of the disastrous fire at Europe's largest airport, London Heathrow. Alex Simlinski is at Poland's biggest airport and has more. Hello, Alex.
Good afternoon, Marie. So that fire that broke out at that Hayes substation is still burning. Now, we've also learned that Met Police has said that the counter-terrorism police is now leading the investigation into the cause of that. They did add that no foul play is suspected as of now, but because of the location of that substation, as well as the impact of this whole incident on critical national infrastructure, it is necessary to carry out such an investigation. Now, London's Terminal 2 and 4 remain still without power. Other European airports have felt this rather in a small, let's say, way. Here at Warsaw's Chopin Airport, a total of 12 flights has been affected, 9 of which have been cancelled. Take a listen to what the spokesperson for this airport had to say here a bit earlier.
Our airport and other Polish airports, I'm sure, have the sufficient and necessary security measures in place. There is no threat to our security, and please don't draw connections between our airport and events that took place at another airport. Each airport is a living organism. Each airport is different, with separate procedures and security systems. They're based, of course, on general guidelines, but there is no comparison between these airports.
Now, when I spoke to a representative of Poland's national air carrier, that is PLL LOT, he told me that in total 6 flights had been affected by this incident. 3 outbound flights from Heathrow had been cancelled. There was a group of people here around 7 a.m. in the morning when one of those 3 outbound flights from Warsaw was due to take off. There had been some people here in a crowd who were wondering and trying to find out if indeed they were going to fly out. He did tell me that those who were supposed to leave Warsaw on the 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. flight, they're not even coming here to the airport. They're taking care of formalities via phone. And when I tried to ask some of the passengers here at the airport what they think about the situation that has taken place in the UK, some of them actually didn't even know what happened, and they were asking me, what do I know about the situation? So there's really not many passengers here, if at all, who are due to leave for the UK today. Back to you, Marie.
Many thanks. That's Alex Solinsky reporting live from Frederick Chopin Airport in Warsaw. And that concludes World News at 2 p.m. on TVP World. Many thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for more. Goodbye.